Yesterday, one of my kids asked me, they said, "Dad, why are we wearing Hawaiian shirts to church? I don't get it." And I was like, that is a great question. Because maybe on the surface, it feels like just a classic stereotypical dad thing to do, right? Your dads just kind of wear Hawaiian style shirts, right? It's kind of that stereotype. But I also want you to catch what we're doing in this moment. And it's subtle, and yet it's also not. We're trying to create moments for us, especially in the midst of a kind of splintered summer right now with moving in, moving out, moving this, moving that, refrigerator equipment, and this and that, so many things. There is something to be said about having, even though it may feel silly moments that bring people together and unify them. Not by vocation, not by status, not by finance, not by job, not by personality, not by anything other than the fact that we're rolling in and you've got a flower printed shirt on and you can laugh about it and you can point and you can talk and you can ask where you got it. It's a conversation starter. It unifies people a little bit. Similar to like a jersey does, a sports jersey, if you will. And in the midst of this modern era in which we live, a modern era, a modern world in which we live where we are more connected in theory than ever, people are reporting feeling lonelier than they ever have in the history of humanity. The numbers are in. People feel isolated. People feel disconnected. They feel lonely despite being able to literally pull up their phones and have a contact list 1,000 deep. You could text so many people. You have names in your contact list. You don't even know who they are. You know it's true. You're like, who is this? I can't even remember putting this in. You don't know who it is. You can video chat. You can Google Meet. Literally this morning, Dre is texting me and he says, "Pastor Andy, we got a problem." I rolled in and there's refrigerator equipment all over the place. He's like, "You want me to video you in so you could see it?" I'm like, "Sure, let's go." You know, I'm sitting on my couch working on the last few things for service, making sure I feel good on the message. And he's like, "I'm going to pipe you in." Right? I'm like, "Hold on, let me download Google Meets because I don't use that." He's got an inferior Android phone. And consequently, right? And so I'm just like, technology is amazing, right? He's texting pictures. We can be more connected and yet more lonely than ever before in history. It's true, isn't it? I've felt that, and you have too. I've labored a little bit through this message, trying to make sure that I'm communicating the right things with clarity here, because what I don't want is for the takeaway to just be like, well, come to church and have more friends. That is not the message today. But I see such a vulnerability right now in the lives of young people who are more connected than ever and more lonely than they've ever been before. Post-COVID, the global epidemic that you can read, and it is literally described as an epidemic, is loneliness. And it is worldwide. It isn't just an American thing. And it's partly what has made this World Cup so special, in that you're seeing people come together and build friendships and relationships and sit next to people they wouldn't normally sit next to. And they're singing songs and chanting this and eating food. And is it surface level? Yes. But can it and does it potentially lead to something more? At times, yes. It's bonding. It's special. It's momentous. And sometimes when we think about loneliness, the challenge for us is that we imagine in our mind kind of the image of the person in the room and the lights are kind of down low and it feels depressing, like loneliness, right? As if you don't know any other humans, right? And you're sad, and it's the picture of the person with like their hands in their face, it's the stock image. And while that is lonely, it is true that it is that. More often than not, loneliness looks like you living your normal life. And yes, being acquainted with people and knowing people and people being around you, and yet no one actually knows the burden that you're carrying. That's loneliness. People don't know the weight that you're bringing along with you. They don't know what you're worried about at night. And so you bear it alone. You're carrying it by yourself. People don't know what you're praying about. They don't know what's on your mind. They don't know the real you. You guys with me today? And this is what loneliness really looks like and feels like. And so the question that comes to mind is, what do we do about an epidemic of loneliness that exists in our culture? And the churchy answer, which I already mentioned, is to just say, come to church and have friends. Join a life group. That's the most churchy answer in the whole world, isn't it? Like, and hear me, I want you to be part of a life group. But if that's all it takes, come to church and be part of a life group, then why do people still feel so lonely? And why is something that we know the answer to, that we can regurgitate, that we can get out, that we can say, why does it feel so difficult then to actually find it? It feels sometimes like it's winning the lottery these days, right? Where it's like somebody else has won the prize, but it's never going to be me. Like, I'm not the one reaping the benefits of that $94 billion lottery winning. Somebody else does. It's always somebody else. And it's always the person who doesn't deserve it, right? You know what I mean? You size the picture up and you're like, no, I should have gotten that, not them. What creates the kind of relationships, church, where people are truly known? That's your question today. And what is it about loneliness where some people just naturally overcome it and they do it with ease? And then some people spend years in the same culture, in the same climate, and have such a hard time connecting. Why? Why does it feel that way? What kind of place can we build and create where burdens are shared together? Or as you're familiar with the show Cheers, if you grew up with that, where everybody knows your name. Anybody grew up with Cheers? Yeah. Dating myself, but yes. Well, as it turns out, the Bible has a lot to say about this issue, but it doesn't say it directly. It speaks to it indirectly. It shows us stories and pictures and illustrations of this, but rarely does it just say with directness, here's how to experience ... And so here's what I want you to do today. We're going to have a message that's a little bit different because it's an indirect answer to what we're asking. And it's out of Nehemiah chapter 3, one of my favorite books in the entire Bible. Ezra and Nehemiah. I love these books so much, I can't even begin to tell you. And yet, when you read it, you might be like, are you kidding me, Pastor Andy? This is so dry, or this is so boring, right? They're rebuilding a wall together, okay? Jerusalem has been in disrepair for centuries, right? And the cupbearer to the king in Babylon, his name is Nehemiah. He looks sad, he looks depressed, and the king looks at him and says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "My hometown, my city, my people are still in disrepair. I just got news that the wall of Jerusalem is still broke down, and that is disgraceful to me and to my people. It's dishonoring." And the king is like, "You know what? I'm going to give you permission to go home. You can leave exile and bring people back. And I'm going to give you permission to rebuild your wall." And Nehemiah does it. And what we read about is a people coming together. The miracle that we think Ezra and Nehemiah is about a wall being built in 52 days, but the greater miracle is a people that are built in 52 days. It's an amazing story. So here we are in Nehemiah 3, and I'm going to preface this to tell you, you're going to have to put your seatbelt on as we read this. Because you're going to be like, this is the sermon? This is what you wanted to read in front of church people today and encourage them on Father's Day? Yes, it is. It's a lot of names. It's a lot of gate names of the city. In other words, you would read this, and if you're drinking coffee, you'd be like, "I am so bored right now. I'm getting nothing out of this." Get ready. Can you buckle up? Can you saddle up? Can you lean in on here? Here we go. Nehemiah chapter 3, 6 through 12. Okay? The Jeshanah gate was repaired by Joiada, son of Pashiah, and Meshullam, son of Besodeiah. They laid its beams, and they put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. If you're into construction, this is your thing. Okay? Next to them, verse 7, next to them, repairs were made by men from Gibeon and Mizpah. Melatiah of Gibeon and Jadon of Meronoth, places under the authority of the governor of Trans-Euphrates. Uzziel, son of Harhaiah, one of the goldsmiths, I don't even know how to say it right. One of the goldsmiths repaired the next section. And Hananiah, one of the perfume makers, made repairs next to that. They restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Raphiah, son of Hur, ruler of a half district of Jerusalem, he repaired the next section. Adjoining this, Jediah, son of Harumath, made repairs opposite his house. And Hattush, son of Hashabniah, made repairs next to him. Malchiah, son of Harim, and Hashub, son of Pahath, Moab, repaired another section, and the Tower of the Ovens. Some cooking happening over there. Shallum, son of Halahesh, ruler of a half district of Jerusalem, he repaired the next section with the help of his daughters. Now, I've already mentioned it. Aren't you exhilarated reading that? You're like, man, devotional time has never been better. Okay? No, you're reading this and you're like, I don't even know how to pronounce 94% of these names. Not only that, there's gates and city walls and all the things. I don't relate to that. I don't even know what it's like to live in a city that has a wall. So it's easy to read this and to just move past what's happening. But I'm asking you not to move past what is happening in this text, because it's significant to our experience of isolation and disconnectedness and what we need in order to experience the God-given sense of purpose and belonging and being a people together. There are two phrases that keep getting repeated, not only in this text, but in the text prior to it and in the text coming after it. I just chose this one. The text tells us that every single person, after they're listed, there's somebody that says, next to them, next to them, next to them, and then next to them. In other words, there is a people that are working on this wall, and they're beginning to build it. And this person's doing this thing, and next to them, this person's doing this. And next to them, this person's doing this. You get where I'm going? It's not rocket science, right? There's always a next to them. There's the rhythm of the next to them in the text, and then there's the rhythm of the next section, right? Next section, next section, next section, and you see it over and over and over again. What you see is a people and a mission. You see community and a purpose, right? The two things of the same coin, two sides of the same coin at work. And God does something miraculous through this. He rebuilds a wall through His people in 52 days. A wall that has been in disrepair, attempted to be rebuilt, failed, and has been in shambles for centuries. And the unthinkable happens. Nehemiah leads his people to rebuild it in 52 days. And here's what I love. Who's working on this wall? You know what a goldsmith does? Works with gold. Goldsmith. You know what a perfume maker does? Works with perfume. Scents. You got goldsmiths working on this wall. You know who's next to them? The perfume maker. You know who's next to them? Merchant. You know who's next to them? The governor. You know who's next to over here? Ruler. You know who was over here? A son. You know who was over here next to them? Daughters. Sons, daughters, husbands, wives, moms, dads, perfume makers, goldsmiths, merchants, governors, priests. The Bible says, you have all of these people united with one goal, one purpose, and that is to rebuild this wall. Right? It's to make this thing happen because their city, their holy city of Jerusalem, is in disrepair. And this is dishonoring to them. Far be it from me, far be it on my watch, far be it from me to be a follower of God Almighty and this holy city be in disrepair. God, would you use us to advance your kingdom and build this thing? And so you see all these people from all these different walks of life with different vocations, different ages, different personalities, different hobbies, different passions, different everything, and yet they're coming together, and what are they all doing? They're all carrying rocks. They're all carrying stones together. I don't know that any one of these people is a professional wall builder. I don't think they are. And yet, look what they did together.
So good.
Everybody needs two things. Every human being needs two things. Someone next to you and a next section to build. This is that indirect kind of picture that we see in Nehemiah. Right, but look at this in Nehemiah chapter 4, because the text actually begins to show us even more of what this looked like. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 16, right? The people that are trying to rebuild this wall, they're getting persecuted. They're experiencing oppression, right? People are actually like trying to kill them while they're building this wall. And we can't get into all the details of why and all this, but they've got an enemy, and that enemy is on its prowl, okay? And from that day on, after they experienced threats, right, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judah who were building the wall. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. And each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. Nobody rebuilt this wall by themselves. Nobody had a section they were working on in isolation. There was literally a line of people, right? A train of people working on the wall, and there was an infantry unit, my language, right, behind the guys working. And they're all suited up, armored, shields, swords, bows. They are there protecting the ones that are working. In other words, everybody had a lane. Everybody had something they were doing. Everybody had a next section, so to speak. And you were next to another person, and what were you now beginning to do? Right? You're working. You got one hand working on a brick and the other hand holding a sword. Right? And you're doing it not just for yourself, but for the next man down the line, the person next to you. You got somebody in your rear guard. You got somebody on your right. You got somebody on your left, and they're all ready to go, accomplishing the mission, and yet also there standing guard and in defense and in offense of the person sitting, standing, breathing next to them. Do you see where I'm going here? You don't live like that and not get to know the person next to you. Do I actually know what that community looked like? No, I don't. But I know the laws of human dynamics. And I know when you go through something together and you do something together, something happens with a people. What does everybody need? Someone next to them and a next section to build. The easy answer to loneliness is to give you the first part of this message. And that's have somebody next to you. And that is where most church messages on this begin, breathe, die, and end. And it's come, sign up for a life group, get in a life group, get to know people, pray together, read the Bible together. You do need that. I'm not dismissing it. But oftentimes what does not happen in that message is the mission of what God has called you to do, the next section, the other side of that coin, getting preached as well. And if community was the only thing that you needed to solve loneliness, then all of you and me and everybody else that has ever attended a church or gone to work and had a work community or a this, that, or a sports group or a that, loneliness would be solved. But it hasn't been, and one of the reasons is that we don't have a mission that we are carrying together. And now we get to the very real practical sense of our church. Whew. It's a toasty one today. One of the things that has been a barrier to real community in our church has been the amount of things that we have had to do just to move locations. I want you to hear this, because in one breath it's bonding, and then you come in and you're like, we got to solve this problem together. There's commercial grade refrigerator equipment and it's everywhere. What are we going to do? And people are just like, they call, they text, they rally together and they make it happen. And that is bonding. I want you to hear that. There's something that happens. But I would submit to you that one of the things that our church has faced, that we are doing everything we can to overcome, is that there are more meaningful mission endeavors that we need to be engaged in other than just solving facility and location challenges. Yeah. And it is one of the things that has actually kind of, I'm going to use the word plagued, even though that sounds a little too dire, but it's plagued us as a church in that at every turn it has felt like we are under the tyranny of the urgent in terms of finding a place. And that is where our efforts as a people have had to, they just have had to be turned there. There is just no denying the fact that we have had to solve on a regular basis, regularly, location challenges. Yeah. And we have solved them, and we've done it admirably. You have done it admirably. Right. And I'm thankful for that. But I also want you to know, and this is going to sound like I'm Eeyore, Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. I'm not. But I want you to also hear the facts here. Over the course of the last 14 years as a church, we have sent missionaries to Romania, Australia. We've sent them to Mexico. We have been in Ireland. We have been in local places like Columbus, starting campus ministries at KSU. We've raised up and developed full-time staff members who literally have raised full salaries and partnership teams for campus ministries. Some have moved, some have transitioned out. We've gone and experienced thing after thing after thing, and those kinds of missional moments. And you know what that does is it brings a people together. And if you're new, or you're a guest, or you're just kind of on that fringe, you know what is not really actually bringing you together? And I mean this lovingly. It's a little bit harder at times to walk in and be like, you know what I want to do? I want to be a part of this group of people that is solving commercial-grade refrigerator equipment being left out. Yeah. I am thrilled about my children running around in those kinds of environments. Right? That's just not, it's not the most inspiring. But you know what is inspiring for most or more people is this idea of world change, right? The idea that God has given us a task at hand, that we are to be a people who are making disciples, that we have a meaningful missional task in front of us, a people next to you, but also a next section to build. And the next section to build has to move beyond things like, where do we put this Jesus changes everything sign? It has to. Because God has called us to far greater things than that. And as we do this, guess what? You grow as a people. You grow in relationship with one another. We grow also, I believe, numerically. I believe we grow in strength. I believe we grow in the offering, and we grow in people's passion to see the kingdom advance. What do? They pick up their sword, right? And they pick up the brick, and they do both together. A people next to you, and a next section to build. One of the biggest challenges to forming a rhythm of community for us, church, which I just described for you, a rhythm of community that actually shapes you and changes you, it is not time. Even though living in Kennesaw and Atlanta and the surrounding area, I know that time is a challenge. I know that. But oftentimes we hide behind that and we're like, well, it's just our place. There are so many cities that are just like Atlanta, Boston, and New York, and Los Angeles, and big cities in general, and they still have churches, and churches have great community together, even in the midst of the hustle and bustle of a huge city. Do you know what the biggest challenge? It's not time, even though that is real. It's that our modern lives are not requiring us to carry a meaningful burden together. In other words, most of what we are trying to accomplish together, it becomes and stays surfacey. It's not a real weight. It's not a real burden. Nothing is really on the line. And what I love about the World Cup is that it's scratching the itch, but at the end of the day, are we really, truly experiencing God's intent for biblical community by simply going to the Battery and cheering on a team? No, you're not. Do you know why? Because all we're really doing is getting pumped about a ball getting hit in a goal. And at the end of the day, that doesn't actually really matter. And I know for some of you, you're like, those are fighting words. You know what really matters? People's marriages, their children, their kids, them feeling the weight of not having enough money and resources and making ends meet, and stepping out in faith. You know what really matters? Starting more churches where people are getting radically born again and experiencing the changing, life-changing grace of Jesus. That's what really matters. As a people of God, this is what matters to us. Or it's what should matter to us. And so what actually creates these relationships together is sharing this meaningful weight and burden. Deep friendships are usually forged while doing something meaningful together. And now I'm going to back up. I'm going to do it sound like a Looney Tunes cartoon right there? How do Justin and I become great friends? Yes, I'm his pastor, but how did that happen? He came one Sunday, and I was like, he's never coming back. We were at the 1808. They had like 400 guests with them. We had no kids ministry at the time, I think. I can't even remember. But it felt like a disaster of a Sunday. I'm talking to his whole family outside, and they left, and I literally had my head down. And I was like, there was a great family, and they'll never be back. So where was my faith? I had none in that moment, just zero. And then they started coming back, and then they come back every week, and then it's like, what do you need? Anything, I'll build it. Or what, this. And all of a sudden now he's carrying load, but not just actual physical load, real load that was on my shoulders. He's now running with setup and breakdown, but on the surface, that's nothing, right? But yet, it's also everything because we are doing everything we can to try to engage this community. And so here we are sharing this meaningful moment together that on the surface feels not so meaningful, but actually is super meaningful. It's diamond in the car on the way to the men's conference. Does it really matter if we go to the men's conference? Well, yes and no, right? Yes, something happens in the car. Something happens on the ride down. Something happens as you're talking about real life together. Something happens when you find out that this man ordered a steak at Waffle House and wasn't happy about it, and we've made fun of him for it for years on years on years. It's one of my favorite moments of all time. How does that happen? How does Adam, right? How is there a moment? I almost forgot about it. I was thinking this morning, the early days that probably nobody knows about during COVID. Right, where we couldn't even sit in a cafe together, and what would we do? We'd literally talk about what God is doing as we walked the parking lot of Home Depot, just outside, just making laps, talking about life. Did it really matter that we were in the parking lot of a Home Depot? No. But a burden was shared. And bonding it, that's how relationships are formed. That's how they're shared. It's you stepping into the story of what's happening. And on the surface, so many of these things seem meaningless, and yet when you put them all together and the mission is in front of us and we remember why we're doing what we're doing, all of a sudden those meaningless things become meaningful. Because deep friendships are formed and forged while doing something meaningful together. So here's my question for you. What kingdom work, what next section are you helping accomplish? What has God put in front of you to build? What burden has He placed on your heart? What burden of somebody else are you also in this moment called to help carry? To help them feel seen and known. And oftentimes those seeing and knowing moments, where do they happen? In the midst of you building the next section. You'll notice Moses and Joshua, this same pattern existed there. We see this at work with Ruth and Naomi. The same pattern existed there. You see the same pattern of work with David and his mighty men. These people united by mission and purpose and brought together, and they experience a depth of relationship that they could only get by virtue of doing something together. And in our midst, it's not just a something, it's kingdom work that we're after. And then, of course, the greatest example, Jesus. He calls the 12. You know what the 12 didn't do? They weren't like, Jesus, here's what we need to do. We need to schedule some friendship time. Let's sit. Let's talk about what it means to be friends with each other. And then we can be friends with each other. They didn't do that. You know what they did? They walked the same dirty, dusty roads together. They were hungry together. They were rebuked together, corrected together, blown away together, shocked together, scared together. They were everything together. As they were seeking God's kingdom to be advanced together. It was the mission that brought them together, but it's the people that keeps us together. So who's next to you? What is God calling you to build? What's the next section? Throw yourself into it. Grab that sword, grab that brick. Get to know the person to your right and to the left. Know that you've got pastors and team and staff and a people behind you, before you, to the right of you, to the left of you. But take that step of faith and begin to build that next section and allow God to bring a true depth of relationship to you. And that looks like, yes, I'll just even read my list. Maybe it's serving with kids. Maybe it is your family. Not making light of that. Some of you, it's helping out with student ministry. For some of you, it is joining a life group. I know our dog did. But that might be the step of faith. Some of you, it's leading a life group. For some of you, it's discipling somebody in their faith. It's going and getting that coffee and doing the Purple Book or doing one-to-one. It's reaching people who don't know Jesus yet, right? That's the next section for you. The point isn't that I'm giving you one. It's that you know that you have one. So who is next to you? And what is your next section? Watch how God not only will build a wall, so to speak, but more importantly, He'll build a people. In the days to come and in the weeks to come and in the months to come, church, we are going to be hitting the gas on this, foot on the pedal, as we return to Kennesaw Elementary School. Many of you know that Amy has started a bread baking business. And I've been helping her on late Thursday afternoons down at this farmer's market in the heart of downtown Kennesaw. One of the things I have been struck by, convicted by, or the amount of young people coming, and yes, they're buying bread, but they're walking over. They're walking over from their apartments. They're walking over from their high rises. Young married couples, no kids. Single people, college students, all these people, and they don't know our church even exists. And I'm grieved by it. And it is part of the wall that God has called me to build. That is my next section. God, what are you doing here? You've called us here. You've called us to make disciples here. This is my next section. This is my next section. Some of you are running with kids ministries and kids departments. Freshly empowered, run with it. Let's be a people I know I'm getting long-winded. I'm doing this. I can feel it happening even right now. Bring it into one thing, because I know everyone has a next section, but it's all tied to one thing, and that is expanding God's kingdom to make disciples, to reach the next generation. So I'll end with this. Who is next to you, and what is your next section? Father, go ahead and stand to your feet. Lord, I thank you, Lord, that you are a God who works and moves powerfully in our midst. God, you sometimes leave those lingering questions for us, even in a sermon like this. God, who is it that knows me? Who is it that I know? Lord, that I know their burden, that I can share their burden together. God, help us to be the kind of people who step in and have faith to get to know the person standing right next to us. God, also, Lord, that we would be the kind of people who have the faith to go again. Lord, to pick up that brick again. Lord, to have the next section in front of us, God, to see your kingdom come and for it to be advanced together as a church. What is the next section that you've called us to, Lord, as a people? God, I pray that you'd speak to everybody in this room right now. God, bring clarity, bring focus, bring passion. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.